Who would have thought Meghan Markle would return to the podcasting world with more of a belly flop than a graceful comeback? Why did she choose now to step back into the spotlight? Her latest podcast, supposedly championing inspiring women, has instead drawn heavy criticism for being far too focused on herself. Here's the full story that's got listeners wondering, is this an interview or just one long therapy session? What happens when a tech billionaire like Whitney Wolfe Herd shows up to share her success story, only to find herself listening to Meghan Markle's personal ramblings? The Bumble founder, who built a dating empire from scratch, ended up feeling more like a prop for Meghan's personal anecdotes. Why did a talk about startups and innovation suddenly morph into a monologue about self-discovery, when Meghan claimed she too had suffered from postpartum preeclampsia, the same rare condition Wolfe Herd discusses in the episode? Many were left asking, or had this detail been hiding all along? How convenient that such a serious trauma only emerges when speaking to someone who's actually lived through it. Is this merely coincidence, or is it a strategic way to share the spotlight? Who, exactly, is the real star of this podcast? Wolfe Herd clearly came ready to talk about her journey as a woman in tech. Yet, just as she began to dive into the challenges of building Bumble, Meghan cut in with a story about packaging stress. At that point, people began to wonder, who is this podcast really for? Where's the empathy when a guest arrives to share her hard-earned wisdom, but instead is forced to listen to the host recount her own life story? In this episode, many listeners felt Meghan was more interested in proving she has a story too than genuinely spotlighting her guest. Could this be narcissism disguised as empowerment? Why does Meghan Markle continue to seek validation through a platform supposedly designed to amplify other women's voices? From the Times to the Irish Times, critics have slammed the podcast as a Pinterest board in audio form, mocking how shallow the narrative turned out to be. Who benefits from this conversation, if not just Meghan herself? When was the last time Meghan truly listened to someone without hijacking the conversation with a personal anecdote? Critics have likened the episode to a covert self-help session, where every theme ultimately leads back to Meghan's own journey. Isn't the whole point of a podcast to listen, not dominate? How has the public reacted to this episode? From bewilderment to brutal criticism, reactions have poured in across social media and review columns. Many feel Meghan has lost her authentic voice and is now clinging to relevance by any means necessary. Could this be a sign her credibility as a host is slipping? Who actually gets invited onto Meghan's podcast? According to Australian journalist Natalie Oliveri, the top criteria seem to be friends with Meghan and be willing to flatter her endlessly. Why is it only people from Meghan's personal circle that get airtime, when there are countless worthy women out there with powerful stories to tell? What does Meghan truly hope to achieve with this podcast? Her sudden revelation of a postpartum health scare, one never mentioned in the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, or even Harry's book spare, has people raising eyebrows. Is this simply a tactic for staying relevant? It seems every guest's trauma must now be matched by Meghan's own. Where was Wolfe Herd's voice in a podcast meant to highlight her incredible achievements? Her facial expressions may have said more than her words, especially when Meghan repeatedly cut in. What must it feel like to have your moment of sharing reduced to background noise in someone else's ego trip? How can we distinguish between platforms that genuinely uplift women and those that merely use women's stories as branding accessories? According to many listeners, Meghan's podcast has shifted from a space of inspiration to a stage for personal monologues. And if even a successful CEO's journey can be sidelined for yet another Meghan anecdote, perhaps it's time to ask, who really needs the spotlight here? If you're curious about this podcast, it's likely not because of any insightful conversation, but because of the drama behind the mic. So, the real question is, who needs the therapy more, Meghan or her listeners?